I love breathing. And eating. Like a piece of Italian salami. I cherish it. I should cherish it more. I should be even more thankful because it's pretty essential to my life. The whole breathing and eating thing. And I really owe that to a process called photosynthesis. And that is the subject of this video. Because without something doing photosynthesis, making food from sunlight, the thing that I'm eating right now would not have anything to eat. Like the plant that started this would not exist, and therefore things that eat plants, like me and you, would not exist either. We couldn't function. So that's kind of awesome. Those things that make the food from sunlight also give off oxygen that we breathe. That's kind of nice. It's kind of a big deal. So this video is going to be about photosynthesis, which allow us to do things like breathe and eat and live. And then we're going to also, the next video, maybe the next one, will be about respiration, which is what we do with the salami and what we do with the oxygen. Okay? I thought this video was really cool. But what it does is show from space the things that are doing photosynthesis at different times of the year. Okay, here's March. As we move toward our northern hemisphere's summer, you can start to see the shift. And there becomes more photosynthesis happening during those months. And then it slows down in the fall. And the southern hemisphere begins to do more photosynthesis. You'll notice, I thought it's fascinating to see the deserts, like the Sahara. Okay, these are places that get a ton of sunlight, but the other thing that they need for photosynthesis, water, is just not there in those deserts of the world. Gobi Desert, Sahara, in Australia. But basically any place that can get a lot of sunlight and a lot of water, you're going to have a lot of plants and other organisms that do photosynthesis. Organisms that can do photosynthesis or make their own food from sunlight is not just limited to plants. Okay, there are other plants, or not other plants, but other organisms, some protists and then a lot of different bacteria can also make their own food. And those organisms are called autotrophs. If you split that word up, troph means food, and auto means own. So basically, they're making their own food. Plants do this. Bacteria and a few protists can do this as well. Alright, so where does this take place on a plant or in a cell? By the way, we can't do this. We cannot make our own food. We have to eat things that make their own food. But where does this take place? It takes place in the chloroplasts and leaves. This picture right here might look like a leaf under the microscope that we've actually seen already this year. Those these organelles right here inside a plant cell are called chloroplasts, and that is where this very scientific thing happens, where photosynthesis takes place. And it takes place mostly in the leaves. That's where these chloroplasts are heavily congregated or concentrated, and that is where food is being made. Side note, why are plants green? These plants that do photosynthesis end up turning green, and then when the photosynthesis slows down, you'll notice that that's when leaves change their color, at least for deciduous plants like we have in Minnesota. But why are they green? It's basically, that's the color that's being reflected by these chloroplasts. There are little structures inside chloroplasts called chlorophyll, which give plants the green color. There are a couple different kinds of chlorophyll, as you can see on this graph here, but basically both of those chlorophylls absorb a lot of light that is on the blue and the red wavelength, but you'll notice on the green wavelength not a lot is absorbed. If it's not absorbed by those chlorophylls, it is reflected. So plants are green and leaves are green only because they're reflecting that wavelength of light. Why do they do that? I don't think scientists completely understand that, but one view of that is that if they also absorbed the green wavelength, it would be absorbing so much energy that it would be overheated, and the loss of water, which you also need for photosynthesis, would be too great. So if it heats up too much and loses water too quickly, that's not going to be good for the plant. So this design that plants have to do photosynthesis is pretty awesome, and thus you get a green color. Alright, two parts of photosynthesis here. And really it comes from splitting up the word photo and synthesis. Photo is about light. That's what that prefix would stand for. So first, plants need to get energy. Plants are going to do this by getting sunlight. Okay, so getting to a place where they can find light. The second part of that, after they get the energy from the sun, is that they're going to make the food. So that's the synthesis part. Synthesis is making something. And in this case, photosynthesis, we're going to make food from the sunlight. That's photosynthesis. First of all, to get light, plants will do just about anything. I'll probably show or display the link to this video that shows a vine that is in the heavy under the canopy of a jungle where you cannot receive the sunlight. So it does anything it can. These little vines will do anything they can to cling on to existing plants and continue to climb up and up until they get to the top of the jungle, really, and then they open up their leaves and get the proper energy from the sun that it needs to. But they will go to great lengths to find light to do photosynthesis. Okay, so the part that's next is when they get light, they're also going to need a couple other things to make food, a couple other ingredients to do this. One, you guys should know that all plants need water. It requires water to do photosynthesis so that plant gets enough energy to grow. And water is H2O. There's 2 hydrogen atoms in this molecule of water and then 1 oxygen. So they definitely need water to do photosynthesis. They also need to take in carbon dioxide from the air. Here's a carbon atom flanked by 2 oxygen atoms to make up the carbon dioxide molecule. So they need water, they need carbon dioxide. Now plants are amazing at finding light. They're also awesome at getting water. Here's a few pictures of the roots of trees and other plants doing anything they can to find water. They will grow right through rock in some cases and take the most direct route or that they can to find water so that they can do photosynthesis and live. So they're awesome at getting water from their roots. Now how does water get from the roots all the way to leaves where this photosynthesis is taking place? That you can see in this video, and I'll share the link to that as well. Alright, so we've got sunlight. They're awesome at getting water. How do we get CO2? Answer, it enters in through the stomata. The picture on the right is actually similar to one that you've probably seen under the microscopes there at school. But if you look at the underside of a leaf, there are these openings called stomata, and these can close like you see here, or they can open up. When they're opened up, it lets the air in, including CO2, so that photosynthesis can take place. When they're closed, that means it's got enough CO2 and it doesn't want to lose more water than it has to. When these are open, they are at risk to losing more water. So these stomata open and close to allow them to save enough water and still get enough CO2 to do photosynthesis. Alright, so here is the equation. We've got water, we take in CO2, we add the energy that comes from the sun in the form of sunlight. What that is going to do, combine all those three inside a chloroplast, inside a plant cell at the leaf, and you're going to make this thing, C6H12O6, otherwise known as sugar or food. We just made food from those ingredients. The other byproduct of photosynthesis is oxygen. So in this equation of combining water, CO2, and sunlight and making food, we also have a leftover oxygen, which is really just secondary. It gives off oxygen, but now we are acclimated to breathing that in and using that oxygen for awesome things. So before we go any further, this is actually the balanced look at photosynthesis. There's an actual equation. You don't need to necessarily remember this, but I do want you to remember that you just have to take water as a reactant, CO2 and sunlight, and that will make sugar or food and oxygen. That's photosynthesis, and this is a more balanced look. So the number of carbons over here equals the number of carbons over there, and the number of oxygens over here equal the number of oxygens that you find over here. So this is a balanced look at it, and that is photosynthesis. Next time we're going to figure out what this glucose or food, this sugar, is used for. And it happens in plants and within our cells too, and that's respiration. See you next time.